What's up everyone, Zach Seif here. Today we're going to check out how I use my Mesa Boogie JP2C along with my Fractal Audio Axe-FX 3. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. My name is Zach Seif. I post regular content on what it's like being a full-time professional musician in today's modern music industry. So if you want to see what it's like on tour, doing sessions, and seeing some awesome gear demos, be sure to take 2 seconds and hit that subscribe button. It helps out the channel a ton. Thank you so much for finding this video and checking it out. So why would I want to use a beautiful, glorious, juicy tube amplifier along with some digital processing unit like the Axe-FX? Well, the answer is actually quite simple. In order to get the most out of any great guitar setup, you want to have a good balance between a quality guitar, nice quality pedals, and a nice quality amplifier. And I find that the combination of those 3 things gives you an incredible signal chain that can really elevate your playing. I made a video a couple years ago going over a pretty similar concept called the 4-cable method, which is where you can use some of your effects pedals in front of your amplifier and then put some in the effects loop to get different sounds and to make sure that your modulations and time-based effects are cleaner and clearer versus putting them in the front where they can distort and stuff like that. But today we're going to go one step further and check out something called the slave output of the Mesa Boogie amp so that you can then send the amplifier back into the Fractal and use high quality studio ready impulse responses and record or send your signal direct to front of house with the best sounding speaker cab sounds you can possibly imagine. So with all of that out of the way, let's dive right into the video. So let's start with what's actually going on in the Fractal. So as you can see here on screen, I have a pretty complex looking signal chain, but if you kind of zoom out and use some logical thinking, it's really no different from a regular pedal board setup for these first 2 rows here. It starts with the input of the Fractal going straight into a pitch block in case I want to downtune my guitar, goes into a compressor for my clean channel, a phaser, an overdrive pedal, and then right back into output 3 of the Fractal, which goes into the input of my amp. So basically that means I'm running a pitch shifter, compressor block, a phaser, and an overdrive block right in front of my amp, just like a traditional pedal board. Then after the preamp of the Mesa, which is going to be just these 6 knobs here, the signal comes from the effects loop send. So now we're sending a signal from the Mesa and we're sending it into the 3rd input of my Fractal. And in there, all I have is a tremolo, because in a traditional Fender style amp, the tremolo circuit would be post preamp, but pre power amp, if that makes sense. Then it goes back into output 4 of the Fractal so that it can get returned into the effects loop return of the Mesa. So now the Mesa is going to have the tremolo sound because I placed it in between the effects loop. And then if that's where I stopped, you would be able to hear all those effects straight through the Mesa and also back into the computer, which we'll get to in a second. But that could be just a typical pedal board setup and it would sound fantastic. But I take it one step further because I like having a stereo sound when I'm practicing at home, and especially when I'm recording clean passages or guitar solos. So if we take a look again at the Fractal, now I have input 4 of the Fractal. Well, what's plugged into input 4? It is the slave output of the Mesa Boogie going into input 4 of the Fractal. And the purpose of that is traditionally you would send that, it takes the signal right before the power amp, splits right there, so that you can send the signal into a separate power amp and run it like a wet dry or a stereo rig live. In our case, we're using it to just send a simple line signal back into the Fractal and then putting all of our modulation and time-based effects in here so that they sound like they were added in the studio for a super wide 3D left-right panned sound. So that's why I have my chorus here, which literally splits the signal into this beautiful, lush mountain of tone. We have a rotary block for all of our Leslie style effects, and it sounds like it's in a Leslie speaker because it rotates between the left and right field. We have our delays, and since I run stereo delays, you hear proper ping pongs and back and forths, and they feed back into each other. And the reverbs have such a wide 3-dimensional sound to them. It's just such a pleasure to play through. And to top it all off, of course, we have to use 2 speaker cabinets. So I'm running 2 Mesa Boogie 412 speaker cabinets here, panned hard left and right to achieve the perfect stereo image. And then last but not least, everything is summoned to a JFET style compressor to give you that crisp studio goodness. And this is what it sounds like. So when I'm using my Musicman guitars that have the acoustic piezo system, when I go here to scene 6, it'll bypass the rest of the signal chain and just use the send and return block so that it bypasses the amplifier completely and just hits the Fractal with an EQ, a reverb, an acoustic IR, and again, that compressor. So that way the color of the tube amp does not affect my acoustic guitar tone. But what if you want to hear all of the effects through the Mesa? Because otherwise we're just going to hear them through the studio monitors. Well, as you can see here, I have a new preset pulled up. It's the pedal board version of that same preset, where all of the effects now that we would want to hear through the amp are now all placed in between the effects loop, the send and the return of the Fractal and the Mesa. So the tremolo is still there, and then I put the chorus, the rotary, the delay, and then finally the reverb. That's what I believe is the proper order for all of these effects, and I've done so much A/B testing this achieves the exact tone that I hear in my head for what I want to achieve. And then I'm still using the slave output because if I want to record it, I can still get a little bit of a room mic sound, which is really nice. I just blend in a little bit of reverb. Then obviously I have the cab impulse responses and the JFET style compressor as well. But this is the best of both worlds if you want to hear all of your effects through the amplifier live in the room and also send them back to front of house or a mixing desk or a recording interface. That just about wraps up today's video. I hope you all learned something really cool about using these Mark style amplifiers, or maybe just in general learning how to use MIDI and the 4-cable method for your tube amp to get the best out of both the analog world and the digital world. Today it is so hard to differentiate between the two, and they both offer great pros and cons depending on what your specific use case is. If you want more content on the regular, I post every day on social media. Those links are in the description below. Please take 2 seconds if you haven't already. Leave a comment with your thoughts about the video today, and hit that subscribe button. It helps me out a ton. And until next time, everyone, keep on following your dreams.